I think the story of this movie is a story of most of the people. Most of the people have dreams when they are in their 20s, and most of the people end up trying to repeat the exciting things they did in their 20s. And every time when you try to repeat something, most of the time, it becomes a caricature of the original thing. And I think that is what's interesting, that you have something like the Algerian fight for independence. You have an incredible love story at the same time of somebody that they're gonna cut her head with a guillotine. So you have something very, very intense. And this can become like a drug. You want more of this fantastic thing, of this purpose in life, of this excitement. And so in order to get more, you try to reproduce that. The same way Juan Perón tried to have another Evita. And Evita he met in a nightclub, and he made Evita. And then, so he goes back to another nightclub, and he makes Isabelita, and he tries to make Evita out of Isabelita. So he's trying to relive the exciting part of his life. And I think that is the story of Vergès, that especially politically, I'm not talking only about the woman, I'm talking especially about politically, he tried with the Palestinians to relive what he had lived with the Algerians. And then the Palestinians became Carlos. Carlos looks like it was more of a lone terrorist that was not representing many more people than himself at the end. And so in fiction you have a very complex relationship between him, the wife of Carlos that claims later that he had betrayed him. All this is fantastic stuff for a fiction movie, and it's all real, and it's all very exciting to explore it. What was the motor? What was the center of the personality? What was the important moment in his life? The important moment in his life was this fight for the independence that was won, that succeeded. The most exhilarating moment of his life was that, and the love story that was going with it. So basically, two things happen. One thing happened is that you try to repeat that kind of experience in life when you have lived it. This is life to its fullest. This is the maximum excitement, the maximum adventure, the maximum historical relevance. It's fantastic. So you try to relive it at any cost, somehow. And when you try to relive things, very often you relive it in the form of caricature. When Juan Perón tried to relive what he has lived with Evita, he chooses another girl that is in a dancing club, Isabelita, and she's a pathetic copy of Evita. And so he tries to relive that, but it doesn't work. And in the case of Vergès, he tries to relive the Algerian war with the Palestinians, but it doesn't really work the same way. And he ends up, after years of being with the Palestinians, being with Carlos. And Carlos, he may represent himself more than anybody else. And so it become a real true caricature. So the film is based on this, on on the fact, on the repetition, on somebody who's trying to repeat. And so, of course, this is similar to the story of Vertigo, where you have a man in love with a woman that disappears, and then he finds another one that looks like her, and he does everything to her to be like the other one. Yeah. And then this is very moving. It's the most beautiful and pathetic and terrifying love story. So this is a theme that I like very much. Actually, Our Lady of the Assassin, which is one of my best movies, has also that theme. So that is one of the theme of the movie. The other thing of the movie is very perverse. Is as perverse as Vergès himself. Is that the audience is taken, and I take a lot of time to talk about the Algerian War, to take the audience, to make them accept the violence of the FLN for their independence, to make them accept the fight of the Algerian, to make them accept that initial story. Once they accept that, and once the audience has accepted, and it takes me almost an hour to deal with that, then they're caught in a horrible thing where they pray they had not accepted it, because then they have to swallow another one snake after the other. And then pretty soon they say, no, stop. And when they reach Carlos, they say, no, maybe we should have stopped on the way. I don't know where, but we should have stopped on the way. So that was the trick that I played on the audience, and that is very unsettling, and that was deliberate, of course. Yes. Basically, I don't think there is difference between a fiction movie and a documentary, because when I approach a fiction movie, I have a documentary approach. I try to verify everything. I try to document myself. I try to make it real, and I do a documentary work. Then when I have a documentary, I say, okay, now if I had to do fiction, what would be the elements that are interesting? So first of all, when you do a fiction movie, you need an interesting character. So then you have interesting relationship, and then you have to release them in an order that's exciting. You can just throw everything immediately. You have to reveal slowly, and there are spoilers in Terror's Advocate. If there are certain things, if you reveal them too early, you spoil a little bit the movie. So basically, that's it. It's character and plot.
J'ai vécu dans un pays colonisé, fils d'un père de la Réunion et d'une mère du Vietnam. Mes souvenirs d'enfance sont ceux d'un pays où les gens de couleur devaient s'écarter dans la rue au passage des Européens. C'était là une vision, un sentiment inacceptable.
I think obviously one of the keys to him is the idea of having been colonized, the idea of having lived through the mentality of someone that was part of a French colonial empire, and a resentment for life. That definitely is something that comes out constantly through all his life. Now, the other thing that comes out is he knows that he's brilliant. He knows that he's very intelligent, and he doesn't hesitate to say it or to make you feel it, but so that's another characteristic of him. But one thing that I must say is really to put to his credit is that he is very brave and is a real risk taker. Meaning, for example, if you look in the DVD, I was able to include the defense that he did of the Islamists in Algeria. The Islamists in Algeria are now called Al-Qaeda. They are real extremists. And he was very friend with everybody in power in Algeria, including his wife and everything. And by defending those people, he had nothing to gain, no money, nothing. And he had everything to lose. And he did it because it's his belief. You know, he went on faithful to his belief of defending. So that was very brave. And he wrote a book about the torture that the Islamists are subjected to by the police in Algeria. And of course, if you speak to anybody in Algeria, in the government, or somebody intelligent and enlightened, they are absolutely terrorized about what's happening there. And they think that Vergès is completely crazy to help in any way the Islamists by defending them. So it's an interesting situation there. And basically, he's a troublemaker. And he's somebody that has been colonized, and he is a born troublemaker against this colonization, and he will be an intellectual troublemaker forever, because the latest thing that he has found is really disturbing. To me, is really something criminal, is to defend not only Milosevic, but the ideas of Milosevic. And I think it's in the DVD. I think there are some speeches that he did in October of last year, telling the extreme right party of Yugoslavia not to let go of Kosovo. Now this is really putting oil on the fire, and I told him so. I told him, I understand that you defend the biggest criminal, they all need a lawyer. But to actually go and put oil on the fire of a civil war, I consider that truly criminal. And so he said that no, this was his belief and so on. So he's a real troublemaker. Obviously, I did this movie with one condition, that I was going to have a final cut. Not only final cut, but final choice of who's going to be interviewed. And this is a very dangerous thing for him. But he's a very brave person also. And maybe he also is very clever, and maybe he thought that in the end he was going to be the winner manipulator in this game. And he may be right. I'm not 100% sure, because I was very honest. I let him speak for himself, and you know, he was able to claim that the movie was an absolute masterpiece, and that he was behind it, and if the movie is great, it's because of him. And so it's a very strange game and strange relationship that I ended up having with him, because he calls me my dear enemy, and I call him my victim. I think the film is very damaging to him because of the Stasi and because of his relationship with Carlos. Now Carlos is so crazy that you can't take every word that he says at face value. So there's still a zone of shadow. And I was hoping to get the interviews of Weinrich on the phone. They said that they were going to confirm whatever Carlos had said on the phone. So I would have had two people that would say the same thing. And at the last minute, unfortunately, we had the cameras in the jail, in the high security section of the jail. Weinrich was going to come. We're going to have a 3-hour interview with 2 cameras, high definition. This was a big moment. And at the last minute, he chickened out. He thought that I managed to have the authorization too easily, and that there was something fishy there, that there was going to be some kind of escape attempt that would be organized, and that he would be killed in that escape attempt, and that I was part of that plot. And so I explained to him that this was not the case. He looked at me in the eyes, he says, yes, I think I can trust you, but I'm not completely sure. And the interview didn't take place. At the last minute, he got out of it. And then I said, please just tell me why you don't want to give the interview. And no, it didn't work. The image was very important in this movie. I think that, every time we do an interview, we scouted, we deciding what was going to be the frame for this person was the fruit of a long research. It was something that was supposed to mean something about the character that was interviewed. So this was a very careful plan to do the interview of Anis Nakash. We went to unbelievable trouble because I wanted the life of Beirut, of poor Beirut, but not the bombed out Beirut behind him. The daily life of poor Beirut, of middle class Beirut to poor Beirut. And I needed also some place where I was in a quiet place to do an interview properly. You couldn't be out in the streets with noise and all that. So it was very difficult, and finally I found windows that were thick enough, but they had bars that were blocking some part of the view, so I had to build like a 1 meter platform to put the table that he had in front of him, and a whole construction that usually you do for a fiction movie in order to have the proper background. So it looks like just a guy talking, but it's really an extremely sophisticated, complicated thing that usually you do only for a fiction movie in order to get that frame. I even went to the point to use music as I would use in a fiction movie, with a symphonic orchestra and love themes, because nobody would talk about their love story. So I had to indicate it through the music. So the music would help the audience to understand that there was a love story there was another one there, and create the Greta Garbo of the terrorism, which is Jamila Bouhired, that would never appear, would never give an interview to anybody, but that is a mythical, legendary figure, and I met her, an extraordinary woman, but she would not give any interview ever, even to Al Jazeera television. They sent people to stay 2 weeks in Algiers hoping to get her on camera. She would never do it. And also, she would never accept any role in the Algerian government, ever. So she remained totally pure from the beginning. She remained a very pure person. When I was doing Reversal of Fortune, I had conversation with Dershowitz, who was telling me that he was reading the books of Vergès, and that he was very interested in those theories and those techniques that Vergès had invented, and that is applying right now with the Red Khmer, that the person that is defending Khieu Samphan is refusing to talk to the court, and is asking all the documents to be translated in Cambodian and in French. All the documents are United Nations in English. So the story goes on, and the man is past 80, and it's still going on. He, quote unquote, invented this technique because, and he explains it very much in the movie. He says, we were speaking two different languages. I couldn't, there was no possible communication between the judge and the people who were accused. And so he invented the technique of not apologizing for anything and defending the ideas of his client. Even if his clients were guaranteed to be condemned, at least they were able to be proud of what they were. It was a way to get attention for the trial, to get press and to get, but mostly it was to give pride to the people who were accused. That was the main objective. Not to be, for the accused, not to be demoralized. And the vicious thing that he did was that he did use the same technique with Klaus Barbie. He used that too, the rupture. Klaus Barbie refused to come to his trial. The only reason why there is Barbie is because of François Genoux. Because François Genoux is a key character in the story, the relationship of Vergès with terrorism. This is one of the tracks that is really important. And it is because François Genoux says on screen that he actually hired Vergès to defend Barbie, which Vergès has always denied. That I mentioned Barbie in passing. So that's why I don't want to go into talking about Barbie. What's interesting for me is to talk about terrorism, blind terrorism, the history of blind terrorism that started in the mid-50s in Algeria, never existed before, and it's still existing. You don't target an army or a group of officers, you just target the civil population. Of course, the ultimate blind terrorism is Hiroshima. That's the biggest bomb, and it's touching the civilian population. But of course, it was war. So in this case, it's just the Europeans that were having drinks in the cafe, and that was the way that the Algerians decided to fight their war, because they had no other means of expressing themselves. Or maybe they had, but they chose this one. Yeah. Now, the Palestinians after that, they studied the Palestinians. There was a passing of information, and the Palestinian learned from the Algerian. I tried to show a little bit the connection. So there is really a history, there is a transmission of knowledge. The best reviews I got were not the French reviews, were from a country where no one has ever heard of Vergès, which was America. And the American reviews were much better for me than the French, which were quite unanimously good. Since in the end we ended up getting the French Oscar award for the movie, César. But you know, I don't take those things very seriously. But certainly it can help promote a movie worldwide, and it's very important, especially for a documentary where you don't have the money to promote a movie worldwide in the budget of a documentary. So this really helps to distinguish a movie from the pack of other documentaries that are made every year. So it is very important. Yeah. Of course, everybody asked me how we reacted to the movie, and he showed his brilliance once again. He said this movie, at first he didn't like the movie, of course. It was very embarrassing for him. But then immediately after, he said, this is a masterpiece. This is a major motion picture because of me. So he had found the way to neutralize the movie.